Marcus Chen walked through the busy airport terminal with his carry-on bag rolling behind him. He wore his favorite gray hoodie, the soft, expensive one he had bought in Paris last month. His black joggers were comfortable, perfect for the long flight ahead. On his feet were limited edition sneakers that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But they looked like regular sneakers to anyone who did not know about fashion. The flight from New York to London was going to be long. Marcus had flown this route hundreds of times before. He always bought first-class tickets because he was tall and needed the extra space. Today was no different. He had his boarding pass on his phone and his passport in his pocket. As he approached Gate 47, Marcus saw the usual crowd of travelers waiting to board. Some wore business suits. Others wore jeans and t-shirts. A few people wore sweatpants and looked ready to sleep for the entire flight. Nobody looked the same. That was normal for international flights. The gate agent called for first-class passengers to board. Marcus stood up and joined the small line. He showed his boarding pass on his phone. The screen beeped green. The agent smiled at him and said, "Have a wonderful flight, Mr. Chen." Marcus walked down the jet bridge toward the airplane. He could hear the sounds of people settling into their seats. Babies crying. Overhead bins slamming shut. Flight attendants greeting passengers. All the normal sounds of air travel. When Marcus reached the entrance to the plane, he turned left toward the first-class cabin. A flight attendant stood at the entrance. Her name tag said Patricia Morrison. She had blonde hair pulled back tight and wore the airline's blue uniform. Her smile looked painted on, not real. Patricia looked up as Marcus approached. Her smile disappeared immediately. She stepped directly into his path, blocking the narrow aisle. "Excuse me," Patricia said loudly. Her voice carried through the cabin. "Can I see your boarding pass?" Marcus stopped, a bit surprised. The gate agent had already scanned his pass, but he pulled out his phone anyway and showed her the screen. Patricia looked at the boarding pass for a long time. Too long. Her eyes narrowed as she read it. "This says first class," she said slowly, as if Marcus did not know how to read. "Yes," Marcus replied calmly. "Seat 2A. Patricia looked him up and down. Her eyes lingered on his hoodie, then his joggers, then his sneakers. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Sir, are you sure you have the right ticket? First class is very expensive." Several passengers who were already seated looked up. Marcus felt their eyes on him. He kept his voice steady and polite. "Yes, I am sure. This is my ticket." "Sometimes people make mistakes at the gate," Patricia continued. Her voice got louder. "Sometimes people accidentally get boarding passes for the wrong section. Economy class is toward the back of the plane." Marcus felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had dealt with situations like this before. Too many times before. "This is not a mistake," he said quietly. "This is my seat. 2A first class." Patricia crossed her arms. "Sir, we have dress standards in first class. Our premium passengers expect a certain level of presentation." She looked pointedly at his hoodie again. An older white man sitting in seat 1C was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. He stared at his phone, pretending not to notice the conversation. A woman in seat 3B wore yoga pants and a sweatshirt. Nobody had stopped them. "I was not aware of any dress code," Marcus said, "and the gate agent let me board without any problems." "Well, I am telling you now," Patricia said sharply. "And quite frankly, sir, I am wondering how you even afforded this ticket. First-class seats cost thousands of dollars. Did someone else buy this ticket for you?" The cabin went very quiet. Even the other flight attendants stopped what they were doing. Marcus saw a young woman in uniform near the galley kitchen. Her eyes were wide with shock. She looked like she wanted to say something but did not know if she should. "I bought this ticket myself," Marcus said. His voice was still calm, but now it had an edge to it.
"With my own money?"
"For my assigned seat." Patricia leaned closer. Marcus could smell her strong perfume. "Sir, I need you to be honest with me. Did you find this boarding pass? Did someone give it to you? Because we have had problems with people using stolen tickets." A gasp came from somewhere in the cabin. Marcus heard whispers starting behind him. Other passengers were boarding now, getting stuck in the line because Patricia was blocking the aisle. "Are you accusing me of stealing?" Marcus asked. His words were quiet but clear. "I'm just saying it seems suspicious," Patricia replied. "A young man dressed like that, claiming to have a first-class ticket. You can understand my concern." Marcus took a slow breath. He could feel his heart pounding. He had been called many things in his life, but he had never been accused of theft. Not like this. Not in front of dozens of strangers. "I would like to speak to your supervisor," Marcus said. Patricia laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "My supervisor will say the same thing I am saying. We protect our first-class cabin. We make sure that only the right kind of people sit there. The right kind of people." The words hung in the air like poison. Behind Marcus, someone cleared their throat. A white man in an expensive suit said, "Excuse me, is there a problem? Some of us would like to get to our seats." Patricia smiled at the man in the suit. "No problem, sir. Just a small confusion. We will have this sorted out in just a moment." Then she turned back to Marcus and her smile vanished. "Sir, I am going to need you to step aside and wait while I call my supervisor. And I need to see your identification." "Your passport." "My passport," Marcus repeated. "Yes, I need to verify that the name on your ticket matches your identification, and I need to confirm that you are who you say you are." Marcus could have argued. He could have raised his voice. He could have demanded to speak to the captain. But he had learned long ago that anger only made these situations worse. People expected him to get angry. They wanted him to get angry so they could say he was aggressive or difficult. So instead, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his passport. He handed it to Patricia with steady hands. Patricia opened the passport. She looked at the photo, then at Marcus, then back at the photo. Her finger traced over the name on the passport. Marcus Chen, born in Seoul, South Korea, naturalized U.S. citizen. "This could be fake," Patricia muttered. "It is not fake," Marcus said tiredly. The young flight attendant by the galley finally found her courage. "Patricia," she said hesitantly, "maybe we should just—" "Emily, I did not ask for your opinion," Patricia snapped. "Go check on the passengers in the back." Emily looked at Marcus with an apologetic expression. Then she hurried toward the economy section. Patricia held the passport up to the light as if she was an expert in detecting forgeries. "I am going to need to verify this," she announced. "Everyone, please be patient. This will just take a few minutes." She pulled out the phone from the wall of the airplane and pressed several buttons. "James, this is Patricia in first class. I need you up here immediately. We have a situation." Marcus stood in the aisle holding his small bag while other passengers squeezed past him. Some looked at him with sympathy. Others looked at him with suspicion, as if Patricia might be right. As if he really might be some kind of criminal trying to sneak into first class. One passenger, an older black woman, caught Marcus's eye as she moved past him toward economy. She gave him a small nod. A nod that said she understood. That said she had been there too. Marcus nodded back, then he waited. He waited while Patricia stood guard like he might run away. He waited while whispers spread through the cabin. He waited while his face burned with humiliation, and his hands clenched around the handle of his bag. He waited, and he wondered how many times he would have to prove he belonged before people just believed him. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Marcus stood in the aisle while Patricia watched him like a security guard. Other passengers continued boarding around them. Some had to turn sideways to squeeze past. A few asked what was happening. Patricia would smile at them and say, "Just a small issue with a ticket. Nothing to worry about." But it was something to worry about. At least for Marcus. Finally, a man in a supervisor uniform appeared. His name tag said James Park. He looked tired, like this was the last thing he wanted to deal with before a long international flight. His eyes moved from Patricia to Marcus and back again. "What seems to be the problem?" James asked. Patricia straightened up, looking proud. "This passenger is trying to sit in first class, but I have serious concerns about his ticket." She handed James the boarding pass from Marcus's phone and the passport. "He claims he bought the ticket himself, but look at how he is dressed." And he became very defensive when I asked simple questions. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but James held up a hand. "Let me see these documents first." James studied the boarding pass carefully. Then he opened the passport. His eyebrows rose slightly when he read the name. "Marcus Chen." He looked at Marcus with new interest. "Mr. Chen," James said carefully. "Can you tell me what happened here?" Marcus kept his voice level. "I boarded the plane with a valid first-class ticket for seat 2A. Ms. Morrison stopped me and questioned whether I had the right ticket. She suggested I might have made a mistake and should be in economy. When I showed her my ticket, she said I did not meet the dress standards for first class. Then she accused me of possibly using a stolen ticket. I did not accuse him, Patricia interrupted quickly. I simply said it seemed suspicious. We have to be careful. Identity theft is a real problem. I see, James said slowly. He looked around the cabin. The man in seat 1C was still wearing his shorts and t-shirt. The woman in 3B had her yoga pants on. A businessman in seat 4A wore jeans and a polo shirt. And what dress code policy were you referring to, Patricia? Patricia hesitated. Well, it is not an official written policy, but it is understood that first-class passengers should look professional, presentable, not like they just rolled out of bed. I did not roll out of bed, Marcus said quietly. I am wearing clean clothes. Designer clothes, actually. They cost more than most business suits, Patricia scoffed. That hoodie? Please. James held up Marcus's passport again, looking at it more carefully now. Mr. Chen, do you fly with us often? Yes, Marcus replied. Quite often. Do you happen to have a frequent flyer number? Marcus recited a number from memory. James pulled out a tablet from under his arm and typed something in. His eyes widened as he read the screen. He scrolled down, reading more. His face changed completely. Patricia, James said quietly, can I speak to you privately for a moment? Why, I did nothing wrong. I was protecting our cabin from now, James said firmly. Over here. They moved a few feet away, but the first-class cabin was small. People could still hear them if they listened carefully. And everyone was listening. James showed Patricia his tablet screen. He spoke in a low voice, but Marcus caught some words. Over 2 million miles. Premier status. Top-tier member. Patricia's face went pale, then red, then pale again. That does not change anything, she said, but her voice was weaker now. He still should not be dressed like that. There is no dress code for passengers, James said, his voice harder. None, you know that. But he was being difficult. He was, Patricia, I have been watching you. You did not stop anyone else, only Mr. Chen. Why? The question hung in the air. Patricia's mouth opened and closed. I was just doing my job, making sure everything was in order. By accusing a passenger of theft? I did not exactly. Multiple passengers heard you suggest he stole his ticket. Behind them, several heads nodded. The man in the expensive suit spoke up. I heard her say that. I am sitting right here in 3D and I heard every word. Another passenger added. So did I. She definitely said it seemed suspicious that he could afford the ticket. Patricia spun around, looking at the passengers with shock. You do not understand. I was trying to maintain standards. You were profiling, said a woman with gray hair sitting in seat 2B. She had a crisp British accent and sharp eyes. That is what you were doing, dear. And frankly, it is disgusting.
I am wearing leggings and a jumper.
That gentleman there is in shorts. But you stopped the one man of color and questioned everything about him. That is not. I am not. Patricia sputtered. This has nothing to do with race. I would have stopped anyone dressed inappropriately. But you did not stop anyone else, James said. His voice was very quiet now, which somehow made it worse. Only Mr. Chen. Marcus watched this unfold with a strange, detached feeling. This was not the first time something like this had happened to him. It probably would not be the last. But usually these situations happened in stores or restaurants or hotels, places where he could just leave, walk away, find somewhere else to spend his money. But here, 30,000 feet in the air about to happen, he could not just leave. He was trapped on this airplane with this woman who thought he did not belong. A few passengers had their phones out now. Marcus could see them recording. The little red lights blinked on their screens. Everything was being documented. Every word. Every expression on Patricia's face. Patricia noticed the phones too. You cannot record this, she said shrilly. This is a private airline matter. Actually, said the man with the expensive suit, we can. We are in a public space and we are documenting discrimination. Discrimination? Patricia's voice got higher. I did not discriminate. I treated him exactly like I would treat anyone else. No, Marcus said softly. You did not. Everyone looked at him. He had been quiet for so long that people almost forgot he was the center of this whole situation. You saw a black man in casual clothes, Marcus continued, and you decided I did not belong in first class. You decided I could not afford this ticket. You decided I must have done something wrong to be here. You made all these decisions before you even spoke to me. Before you knew anything about me. That is not true, Patricia insisted, but her voice cracked. I was just being thorough. I was protecting the airline. From what? Asked the British woman. From a passenger with a valid ticket? James put his tablet away. He looked at Patricia with something like sadness. Patricia, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the first-class cabin. I will serve this section for takeoff. We will discuss this further after we land. But this is my section. I always work first class on this route. Not today, James said firmly. Please go help in economy. Patricia's face crumpled. For a moment, Marcus almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then he remembered standing in the aisle while she accused him of theft, while she questioned how he could afford his own ticket, while she made him prove over and over that he belonged. This is not fair, Patricia whispered. I was just doing my job. Your job is to serve passengers, James replied. All passengers. With respect. You did not do that today. Patricia grabbed her tablet and stormed toward the back of the plane. Her shoes clicked hard against the floor. Some economy passengers looked up as she passed, wondering what was wrong. James turned to Marcus. Mr. Chen, I cannot apologize enough for what just happened. This behavior does not represent our airline or our values. Please let me show you to your seat. Marcus picked up his bag. He felt exhausted and the flight had not even taken off yet. Thank you, he said simply. James personally escorted Marcus to seat 2A by the window. He opened the overhead bin and helped put the bag inside. He brought Marcus a bottle of water and a warm towel without being asked. Is there anything else I can get you, Mr. Chen?
Anything at all?
I am fine, Marcus said, though he was not fine. Not really, James hesitated. I want you to know that I have documented everything that happened. Multiple passengers have given statements. This will be reported to our management. Patricia will face consequences for her actions. Marcus nodded. He had heard promises like this before. Usually nothing changed. Usually there was an apology and maybe some training, and then everything went back to normal. I believe several passengers also recorded the incident, James added, glancing at the phones that were now being put away. If you need those recordings for any reason, I am sure they would be willing to share them. Maybe, Marcus said. He did not want to think about it right now. He just wanted to fly to London, attend his meetings, and try to forget this ever happened. James gave him another apologetic smile and went back to preparing the cabin for takeoff. The other flight attendants came through checking seat belts and tray tables. They all gave Marcus extra attention, extra smiles as if trying to make up for what Patricia had done. The British woman in seat 2B leaned over. I am so sorry that happened to you. That was absolutely unacceptable. Thank you, Marcus said. I made sure to get it all on video, she continued, patting her phone, just in case you need it later. My daughter works in aviation law, actually. I know exactly how these complaints should be handled. Marcus looked at her with interest.
Aviation law?
Yes, she specializes in passenger rights and discrimination cases. Here is her card. The woman pulled a business card from her purse and handed it over. If you decide to pursue this, she would be happy to help. Marcus took the card. Rachel Kim, aviation attorney. He slipped it into his pocket. The plane began to push back from the gate. The engines hummed to life. Through his window, Marcus could see the busy airport terminal getting smaller as they taxied toward the runway. His phone buzzed. A notification. Then another. And another. Passengers were already posting about what happened on social media. He could see the hashtags forming. The story spreading. Marcus turned off his phone. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. All he wanted was a peaceful flight. That was all he ever wanted. To be treated like everyone else. To sit in the seat he paid for without having to prove he belonged there. Was that really too much to ask? The plane reached cruising altitude 30 minutes after takeoff. The seatbelt sign turned off with a soft chime. Marcus looked out the window at the clouds below. They looked like white mountains stretching forever. Peaceful. Quiet. Not like the chaos that had happened during boarding. James came by with the first-class meal service. Mr. Chen, what can I get you to drink? We have champagne, wine, cocktails, soft drinks, juice. Just water, please, Marcus said. Still not sparkling, of course. And for your meal, we have the grilled salmon with vegetables or the chicken piccata with pasta. The salmon sounds good. James wrote it down on his tablet. Excellent choice. I will bring that right out. Marcus noticed that James was handling the entire first-class cabin by himself. Usually there were 2 flight attendants for this section. Patricia should have been helping, but she was banished to economy for what she had done. The British woman next to him, Mrs. Kim as she had introduced herself, ordered the chicken. After James left, she turned to Marcus. "How are you holding up, dear? That was quite an ordeal." "I am okay," Marcus said automatically. It was what he always said. "No, you are not," Mrs. Kim said gently, "and you do not have to pretend you are." "What that woman did was horrible." Marcus looked at her. She had kind eyes behind her glasses, the type of eyes that had seen a lot of life. "It happens," he said with a shrug. "Not my first time dealing with something like this." "That does not make it acceptable." "No," Marcus agreed. "It does not," Mrs. Kim patted his arm. "My husband and I came to England from Korea 50 years ago. I know what it feels like to have people look at you and decide you do not belong. To have them question everything about you, your job, your money, your education, as if you have to prove your right to exist in the same space as they do." Marcus nodded. He knew exactly what she meant. James returned with their drinks. He placed Marcus's water down carefully, making sure the glass was full and the napkin was perfectly positioned. Then he hurried off to help another passenger. 30 minutes later, the meal service began. James brought Marcus his salmon. It looked delicious with green beans and roasted potatoes on the side. A small salad, fresh bread with butter, everything perfectly arranged on the tray. "Please enjoy. Mr. Chen, let me know if you need anything else." "Thank you," Marcus said. He ate slowly, not because the food was bad, but because his stomach felt tight. The confrontation with Patricia had stolen his appetite. But he forced himself to eat anyway. It was going to be a long flight. Around him, other first-class passengers ate their meals and watched movies on their screens. They laughed at comedies. They worked on their laptops. They slept under the airline's nice blankets. Everything seemed normal for them, but Marcus could not relax. He kept thinking about Patricia's words. The right kind of people. What did that even mean? People who looked a certain way? People who wore suits and ties? People with white skin? He had built a successful business from nothing. He had worked 18-hour days for years. He had made smart investments and taken big risks. He had earned everything he had. But to Patricia, none of that mattered. She saw his skin color and his hoodie and decided he was suspicious. Marcus pulled out his laptop. He had work to do. Reports to read, emails to answer, a company to run. But he could not focus. The words on the screen blurred together. He closed the laptop and looked around the cabin instead. James was refilling someone's coffee. A passenger pressed the call button and James rushed over immediately. He was working hard, doing the job of two people. Marcus wondered what was happening in economy class. Was Patricia serving passengers back there? Was she complaining about him to the other flight attendants? Was she telling them her side of the story, making herself the victim? An hour into the flight, a different flight attendant came into first class. Her name tag said Sarah. She was young, maybe 25, with red hair pulled into a bun. She looked nervous. Sarah approached Marcus's seat and crouched down next to him. "Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry to bother you. I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about what happened during boarding. I saw everything. I wanted to say something, but I did not know if I should." Marcus looked at her. He could see the guilt on her face. "It is okay," he said, even though it was not really okay. "No, it is not," Sarah said, echoing Mrs. Kim's words. Patricia was completely wrong. The way she treated you was discrimination, plain and simple. I should have stood up for you right away. I should have told her to stop. "You are young," Marcus said. "Patricia is your coworker. I understand why you hesitated." "That is not an excuse," Sarah replied. "I became a flight attendant because I love meeting people from all over the world. I love helping passengers have good experiences. What Patricia did goes against everything this job should be about." She paused. "I gave my statement to James. I told him exactly what I saw and heard. I want to make sure Patricia faces real consequences." "Thank you," Marcus said. "That means a lot." Sarah stood up. "Is there anything I can get you?" "Anything at all? I'm covering economy right now, but I can bring you whatever you need." "I am fine, thank you." Sarah nodded and walked back toward economy. Marcus watched her go. At least some people were good. At least some people cared about doing the right thing. 2 hours into the flight, Marcus got up to use the bathroom. He walked down the aisle. past the sleeping passengers and the ones watching movies. The first-class bathroom was at the front of the plane, small but clean. When he came out, he nearly bumped into Patricia. She was standing in the galley area, preparing drink carts for economy class. Her face was red and blotchy like she had been crying. When she saw Marcus, she froze. They stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other. "I am sorry," Patricia whispered finally. "I am so sorry for what I said. I did not mean to. I was not trying to." Her voice broke. "I am probably going to lose my job over this." Marcus did not know what to say. Part of him felt angry. Patricia had humiliated him in front of dozens of people. She had accused him of theft. She had made him feel small and unwelcome. But another part of him just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of these situations. Tired of having to educate people on why their behavior was wrong. "Why did you do it?" Marcus asked quietly. "Why did you assume I did not belong?" Patricia looked down at her shoes. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I do not know," she whispered. "I saw you in those clothes and I made assumptions. Stupid, awful assumptions. I was not thinking. I was just reacting. Based on what? My skin color? My clothes? What made you think I was different from all those other passengers in casual clothes?" Patricia did not answer. Maybe she did not have an answer. Or maybe she did, but she was too ashamed to say it out loud. "I've been flying first class for 10 years, Marcus said. I have flown millions of miles. I have been to 50 countries. And this is not the first time someone has questioned whether I belong. But it never gets easier. Every single time it hurts. Every single time I have to prove myself. Show my ticket. Show my ID, explain how I can afford it. As if I owe strangers an explanation for my own life." Patricia sobbed quietly. "I am so sorry. I know sorry does not fix it. I know I caused you pain. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Marcus looked at her crying face. He could make this worse for her. He could be cruel. He could say things that would haunt her. But what would that accomplish? "I hope you learn from this," Marcus said finally. "I hope you think about what you did every time you see a passenger boarding your plane. Every time you make a snap judgment about someone. I hope you remember this moment and choose differently next time." He walked past her and went back to his seat. Behind him, he could hear Patricia crying harder. Mrs. Kim was awake when he sat down. Was that her? Patricia? Yes. Did she apologize? Yes. Do you accept it? Marcus thought about that question. "I do not know," he admitted. She seemed genuinely sorry. But sorry does not undo what happened. "It does not erase how she made me feel." "No," Mrs. Kim agreed. "It does not." The flight continued. The sky outside turned from blue to orange to deep purple as they chased the sunset across the Atlantic. Marcus tried to watch a movie but could not pay attention. He tried to read a book but kept reading the same page over and over. His mind kept going back to the boarding process, to Patricia's face when she blocked his path, to the whispers of other passengers, to the feeling of being judged and found guilty without a trial. 3 hours before landing, James came by again. "Mr. Chen, I want to update you on the situation. I have filed a formal incident report with our company. Multiple passengers have submitted written statements. We also have statements from crew members who witnessed what happened. When we land, there will be airline representatives waiting to speak with you if you are willing." "Representatives?" Marcus asked. "Yes, from our customer service department and our corporate office. They want to apologize in person and discuss how we can make this right." Marcus almost laughed. Make it right? How could they make it right? They could not erase what happened. They could not give him back those moments of humiliation. "Also," James continued, "several passengers have asked if they can share their video recordings with you. They want to make sure you have evidence if you decide to file a formal complaint." "I will think about it," Marcus said. James nodded. "Take all the time you need. And Mr. Chen, for what it is worth, I think you handled this situation with incredible grace. A lot of passengers would have yelled or caused a scene. You stayed calm and dignified through the whole thing." "I have had practice," Marcus said quietly. James's face fell. "That is heartbreaking that you have needed practice." After James left, Mrs. Kim turned to Marcus again. "So what are you going to do? Are you going to file a complaint? Talk to the media? Sue the airline?" Marcus stared out the window at the dark ocean below. "I do not know yet. Part of me wants to just forget this ever happened. Move on with my life. But another part of me knows that if I do nothing, Patricia might do this to someone else, maybe someone younger, someone who does not have my confidence or resources, someone who might actually believe her when she says they do not belong. My daughter could help you, Mrs. Kim offered.
If you want to pursue legal action?
She has handled cases like this before. Airlines hate bad publicity. They usually settle quickly. I will think about it, Marcus promised. The plane began its descent into London. The flight attendants collected trash and prepared the cabin for landing. Patricia appeared briefly to help with first class, but she avoided looking at Marcus. She kept her head down and did her job mechanically. When the wheels touched down on the runway, passengers applauded lightly. They always did that on international flights. Marcus did not clap. He just waited for the plane to reach the gate. His phone buzzed as soon as they were parked. Messages from friends and colleagues who had seen the videos online. The story was everywhere now. Social media was exploding with comments. Some people supported him. Others said he was overreacting. Some claimed the whole thing was fake, staged for attention. Marcus turned his phone off again. He could not deal with that right now. The first-class passengers began standing up and getting their bags. Marcus waited until most of them had left. No rush. He had nowhere urgent to be. Mrs. Kim paused before leaving. She pressed her daughter's business card into his hand again. Please call her. What happened to you matters. Your story matters. And maybe if you speak up, it will help change things for other people too. Marcus nodded and put the card in his pocket. Finally, he stood up and got his bag from the overhead bin. James was waiting at the front of the plane. Mr. Chen, if you could come with me, please. There are some people who would like to speak with you. Marcus followed James off the plane and into the jet bridge. Instead of leading him toward the main terminal like usual, James took him down a side hallway. They walked past storage closets and staff rooms until they reached a door marked Airline Personnel Only. James knocked twice, then opened the door. Mr. Chen is here. The room was small and plain with a table and several chairs. 3 people stood up when Marcus entered. A woman in a dark business suit stepped forward first. Mr. Chen, thank you for meeting with us. I am Sarah Williams, the regional director for our airline here in Europe. This is Michael Torres, our head of customer relations, and Jennifer Lee from our human resources department. Marcus shook their hands but did not sit down. Not yet. He wanted to see what they had to say first. Sarah gestured to a chair. Please sit. Can we get you anything? Coffee, tea, water? I am fine, Marcus said. But he sat down anyway. His body felt heavy after the long flight. The 3 airline employees sat across from him. They all looked serious, worried. Sarah opened a folder in front of her. Mr. Chen, I want to start by offering you our deepest apologies for what happened during boarding. Patricia Morrison's behavior was completely unacceptable and does not represent the values of our airline. We have reviewed the incident report, statements from multiple passengers and crew members, and video footage. There is no question that you were treated unfairly. Marcus nodded but said nothing. We take discrimination extremely seriously, Michael added. Any employee who engages in this type of behavior faces immediate consequences. What kind of consequences? Marcus asked. Jennifer from HR leaned forward. Patricia Morrison has been suspended without pay, effective immediately. There will be a full investigation. Based on the evidence we have already seen, termination is very likely. She will lose her job, Marcus said. Yes, most likely, Jennifer confirmed. We have a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Patricia violated that policy in a very public and harmful way. Marcus thought about Patricia crying in the galley, about her saying she would probably lose her job. She had been right. Sarah continued. We also want to make this right with you, Mr. Chen. We would like to offer you a full refund of your ticket, plus complimentary first-class travel for the next year. Unlimited flights, any destination we serve. Marcus almost laughed. They thought they could fix this with free flights? As if that was the problem. And, Sarah added quickly, seeing his expression, we would like to make a donation to any charity of your choice. In your name, to show our commitment to fighting discrimination. How much? Marcus asked. Sarah hesitated. $25,000. Marcus sat back in his chair. $25,000 was a lot of money to most people. But not to him, and it felt like they were trying to buy his silence. Is that all? He asked quietly. The 3 employees looked at each other nervously. Michael cleared his throat. We are open to discussing what would feel appropriate to you, Mr. Chen. Marcus looked at each of them. Do you know who I am? I mean, beyond just a passenger who was treated badly. We know you are a frequent flyer with premier status, Sarah said carefully. One of our most loyal customers. Did you look up anything else about me? Another pause. Longer this time. Then Sarah said, We know you travel frequently for business, that you fly first class exclusively, that you have been a member of our rewards program for over a decade. Marcus pulled out his phone. He opened a web browser and typed in his own name. Then he turned the phone around so they could see the screen. The search results showed articles about Chen Global Investments, about Marcus's business deals, about his acquisition of a hotel chain, about his net worth, which several websites estimated at over $2 billion. Sarah's face went pale. Michael's mouth dropped open. Jennifer just stared at the screen. I am Marcus Chen, he said quietly, founder and CEO of Chen Global Investments, and I own 12% of this airline's stock. I am one of your largest individual shareholders. The room went completely silent, so silent Marcus could hear the hum of the air conditioning. You are, Sarah started, then stopped. You are Marcus Chen, the Marcus Chen. Yes. Oh my God, Michael whispered. Sarah looked like she might be sick. Mr. Chen, I had no idea. I am so sorry. If you had known I was rich, you would have treated this differently? Marcus interrupted. The problem is not that you did not know who I was. The problem is that Patricia treated me that way in the first place. It does not matter if I am a billionaire or a college student. It does not matter if I am wearing a hoodie or a three-piece suit. I had a valid ticket. I deserved basic respect. You are absolutely right, Sarah said quickly. I apologize. I did not mean to suggest, but that is the thing, Marcus continued. His voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. You did mean to suggest it. Everyone always means to suggest it. If I was a white man in a hoodie, this probably never would have happened. But because I am black, because I do not look like what people expect a first-class passenger to look like, I get questioned. I get accused. I get humiliated, Jennifer spoke up. Mr. Chen, we truly want to make this right. Please tell us what we can do. Marcus leaned forward. I want to know how many other incidents like this have happened on your airline. In the past year, the three employees looked at each other again. Sarah opened her folder and pulled out a piece of paper. She did not want to show it to him, Marcus could tell, but she did anyway. In the past 12 months, we have had 47 formal complaints about discrimination from passengers, racial discrimination, religious discrimination, discrimination based on disability. 47 complaints that were serious enough to be officially documented. 47, Marcus repeated. And how many of those resulted in employees being fired? Sarah looked down. 3. 3 employees fired out of 47 complaints. What happened to the others? They received counseling, additional training, written warnings. So Patricia is not the only one, Marcus said. She is just the one who got caught on video. No one argued with him. Marcus stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, he could see planes taking off and landing. Thousands of passengers flowing through this airport every day. How many of them had stories like his? How many had been treated unfairly and just accepted it because they did not want to cause trouble? I fly commercial regularly, Marcus said, still looking out the window. Not just your airline. All the major carriers. I could easily fly private. I can afford my own jet. But I choose to fly commercial because I like to stay connected to regular customer experiences. I like to see how companies treat their passengers, how they handle problems, how they train their employees. He turned back to face them. Do you know what I have learned? Most airlines talk about diversity and inclusion. They put it in their marketing. They post about it on social media. But when it comes to actually treating passengers equally, most of them fail. Because the people doing the failing are not executives in corporate offices. They are flight attendants and gate agents and customer service workers. The people on the front lines who never got proper training on their own biases. Sarah nodded slowly. You are right. Training is a huge issue for us. It is an issue for the entire industry, Marcus said. And as someone who owns part of your airline, I'm very concerned about it. That got their attention. All 3 of them sat up straighter. What are you saying, Mr. Chen? Michael asked carefully. I am saying that I have been considering increasing my stake in this airline. I was actually flying to London for meetings about potentially acquiring another 8%, which would give me 20% total. That would give me a seat on your board of directors. A voice in company decisions. Sarah's eyes widened. You are considering buying more stock? Was he, Marcus emphasized. Past tense. After what happened today, I'm not sure I want to invest more money in a company that allows this kind of behavior. Please, Sarah said urgently. Please do not make that decision based on one employee's mistake. Patricia will be dealt with. We will make changes. What kind of changes? Marcus challenged. More diversity training that people sleep through? A new policy that no one enforces? That is not good enough. Then what would be good enough? Jennifer asked. Tell us what you want to see and we will make it happen. Marcus came back to the table and sat down. He looked at each of them carefully. I want real change. Systemic change. Not just punishment for Patricia, but an overhaul of how your airline handles discrimination. We are listening, Sarah said. First, I want every incident of discrimination in the past 5 years reviewed. Not just the formal complaints. All of them, including the ones that were dismissed or not taken seriously. I want to know the real scope of the problem. Sarah made notes on her tablet. We can do that. Second, I want a new mandatory training program for all customer-facing employees. Not the usual online module that takes 20 minutes. Real training. With scenarios. With accountability. With regular refreshers. Agreed, Michael said. Third, I want a new reporting system where passengers can easily file complaints and track them. Right now, most people do not complain because the process is too difficult. They do not trust that anything will happen. That needs to change. We can implement that, Sarah confirmed. Fourth, I want quarterly reports to shareholders about discrimination complaints. Make it transparent. Make it public, so everyone can see if things are getting better or worse. Jennifer nodded. That is fair. And finally, Marcus said, I want to fund a scholarship program for young people of color who want to work in aviation. Pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, management. The only way to really change the industry is to change who works in it. Sarah smiled for the first time since Marcus revealed who he was. Mr. Chen, that is incredibly generous. It is not generous, Marcus corrected. It is an investment in the future of this company and this industry. If we agree to all of this, Sarah said carefully, would you still consider increasing your stake in the airline? Marcus thought about it. About Patricia's tears, about all the other passengers who had been treated unfairly, about the 47 complaints in just 1 year. Yes, he finally said, but I would want to be involved. Not just as an investor, but as someone who helps implement these changes. I want a seat on your operations committee. I want input on policy. I want to make sure this actually happens and is not just empty promises. The 3 employees looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Sarah extended her hand. Mr. Chen, you have a deal. I will take this to our CEO and board immediately. But I can almost guarantee they will approve it, especially once they learn you were the passenger involved in today's incident. Marcus shook her hand. Then Michael's, then Jennifer's. One more thing, Marcus added. I do not want Patricia's termination to be the end of this story. I want her case to be a teaching moment. Use it in the new training. Show employees what not to do, but also talk about implicit bias, about assumptions, about how our brains make snap judgments that are often wrong. You want us to use your incident as a case study? Jennifer asked, surprised. Yes, change the names if you need to, but use the real situation. Because it is real. It happens every day, and people need to understand the impact. After another hour of discussion, Marcus finally left the room. James was waiting outside to escort him through the airport. As they walked, Marcus pulled out his phone and turned it back on. Hundreds of messages, emails, social media notifications. The video of his confrontation with Patricia had gone viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. One message was from his assistant. Boss, the media is calling. They want interviews. What should I tell them? Marcus typed back, tell them I have no comment. For now, he had work to do first. Changes to make. A system to fix. Then maybe he would tell his story, but on his own terms. 2 weeks passed. Marcus sat in the airline's corporate headquarters in a glass conference room overlooking London. Around the table sat 12 board members, including Sarah Williams and several executives he had not met before. At the head of the table was Richard Harrison, the CEO of the airline. Marcus wore a suit today, Navy blue, perfectly tailored. He looked every bit the billionaire businessman. But he remembered what it felt like to be judged for wearing a hoodie and joggers. He would not forget that lesson. Gentlemen and ladies, Richard began, we are here today to discuss Mr. Chen's proposal for comprehensive anti-discrimination reforms within our company. Mr. Chen has prepared a presentation. Marcus, the floor is yours. Marcus stood up and pressed a button on his laptop. The screen behind him lit up with data. Charts, numbers, statistics. Thank you, Richard. What I am about to show you is uncomfortable. It should make you uncomfortable, because what I found when I dug into your complaint data is alarming. He clicked to the next slide. In the past 5 years, your airline has received 238 formal complaints about discrimination. That is just the formal complaints. The ones where passengers went through the entire process of documenting what happened. Research shows that for every formal complaint, there are roughly 20 incidents that go unreported. That means the real number is closer to 5,000 incidents in 5 years. Several board members shifted in their seats. Of those 238 formal complaints, only 9 resulted in termination. That is less than 4%. Another 40 received some form of discipline, usually written warnings or mandatory training. The remaining 189 complaints were dismissed or resolved with an apology. Marcus clicked again. A new slide appeared showing demographic breakdowns. 62% of discrimination complaints came from passengers of color, 18% from Muslim passengers, 12% from passengers with disabilities, 8% from LGBTQ passengers. When we break it down by airline route, the patterns are clear. Certain routes have much higher complaint rates. Certain airports, certain crews. He looked around the table. Every face was serious now. Some looked guilty. Others looked defensive. Now I want to be clear. I do not think your airline is uniquely bad. I had similar data pulled from 3 of your major competitors. The numbers are almost identical. This is an industry-wide problem. But that does not excuse it. It just means we have an opportunity to lead, to be the first airline that actually takes this seriously. Richard leaned forward. What are you proposing specifically, Marcus? A 6-part plan. Marcus clicked through his slides, outlining each point. Part 1. Mandatory bias training for every single employee. Not the standard online module. Real in-person training led by experts. 8 hours minimum, with regular refreshers every 6 months. No exceptions, from pilots to baggage handlers to executives. Sarah nodded approvingly. Part 2. A new complaint system that is easy to use and transparent. Passengers can file complaints through the app, website, or phone. They get a tracking number. They can see the status of their complaint in real time, and they get updates within 48 hours. Part 3. Consequences that match the severity of the incident. Right now, most employees get a slap on the wrist. That needs to change. First offense of discrimination, mandatory training and probation. Second offense, suspension without pay. Third offense, termination. No exceptions. Some board members looked uncomfortable with that. Marcus did not care. Part 4. Public accountability. Quarterly reports to shareholders showing complaint numbers, resolution rates, and disciplinary actions. Make the data public. Let passengers and investors see if you are improving or not. Part 5. A scholarship fund for underrepresented groups in aviation. $10 million over 5 years. Fully funded by Chen Global Investments. For students who want to be pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, or work in airline management. We need to change who works in this industry. That got positive reactions. Several board members smiled and nodded. Part 6. I want to join your operations committee. I want direct involvement in implementing these changes. This is not just about writing checks and creating policies. It is about actually changing the culture of this company. Richard looked at the other board members. Questions? An older man named David raised his hand. Mr. Chen, I appreciate your passion about this, but implementing everything you have suggested would cost millions of dollars. Training programs, new technology for the complaint system, additional HR staff to handle investigations. Are you prepared to help fund these changes? Yes, Marcus said simply. I am increasing my stake in this airline to 20% as planned. That is a $200 million investment. I expect some of that money to be allocated to these reforms. If the board approves my plan today, I will finalize the stock purchase next week. That changed the atmosphere in the room. $200 million was hard to argue with. A woman named Patricia, No, wait, Patricia Chen spoke up. Marcus had to stop himself from reacting to the name. Different Patricia. What about the employee who started all this? The flight attendant? What happened to her? Patricia Morrison was terminated, Jennifer from HR answered. Her case is being used as a training example, with identifying details changed as Mr. Chen requested. Marcus added, I met with Patricia one more time before she was fired. She wanted to apologize again. I told her the same thing I will tell all of you. Sorry is not enough. Change is what matters. Patricia lost her job, and that is appropriate. But she is also a product of a system that failed to properly train her, that failed to challenge her biases, that failed to hold her accountable earlier in her career. She had worked for this airline for 12 years. In 12 years, did anyone ever talk to her about implicit bias? Did anyone ever question her judgment? Did anyone ever make her think critically about how she treated passengers? The room was silent. Patricia Morrison is responsible for her own actions, Marcus continued. But this airline is responsible for the environment that allowed those actions to happen. That is what we are here to fix today. Richard stood up. I think we have heard enough. Let me propose a vote. All in favor of implementing Mr. Chen's 6-part plan? Raise your hand. Marcus held his breath. This was the moment that mattered. Talk was cheap. Action required commitment. One by one, hands went up around the table. Sarah's hand shot up first, then Jennifer's, then Richard's. Within 30 seconds, all 12 board members had their hands raised. Unanimous, Richard said with a smile. Mr. Chen, welcome to the Operations Committee. Let us change this industry together. After the meeting, Marcus stepped outside onto the balcony for some air. London stretched out below him, gray and rainy and beautiful. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. The Patricia Morrison video has been viewed over 50 million times now. Media requests are still coming in. What should I tell them? Marcus thought about it, then typed back. Set up a press conference for next week. Time to tell the full story. The balcony door opened behind him. Sarah stepped out. You know, when I first met you 2 weeks ago, I was terrified. I thought you were going to sue us, or tank our stock price, or publicly destroy our reputation. I still could, Marcus said, but you are not. Why? Marcus looked at her. Because destroying your airline would not fix anything. It would just hurt thousands of employees who had nothing to do with what happened. I would rather build something better. Something that lasts, Sarah smiled. For what it is worth, I think what you are doing is incredible. You turned something awful into something meaningful. It should not have happened in the first place, Marcus said. But since it did, I might as well make sure it means something. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the rain fall on London. Can I ask you something personal? Sarah said, sure. How do you do it? How do you stay so calm? When Patricia was accusing you, when she was humiliating you in front of all those passengers, you never lost your temper. You never yelled. How? Marcus was quiet for a long time before answering. Because I learned a long time ago that when you are a black man, anger makes everything worse. People expect you to be angry. They want you to be angry because it confirms their biases. So I stay calm. I stay rational. I let the facts speak for themselves. It is not fair that I have to do that. But it is reality. That is a lot of weight to carry, Sarah said softly. Yes, Marcus agreed. It is. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Mrs. Kim, the British woman from the flight. Hello, dear. My daughter watched your presentation to the board. Very impressive. We are having tea next Tuesday. Would you like to join us? Marcus smiled and typed back, I would love to. Later that evening, Marcus returned to his hotel. It was one of his own hotels, part of the chain he had just acquired. The staff knew who he was, of course. They treated him like royalty. But Marcus wondered if they would treat him the same way if he showed up in a hoodie and joggers with no reservation. He made a mental note to test that theory someday. In his room, Marcus opened his laptop and looked at the video that had gone viral. 50 million views. The comment section was a mess. Some people supported him. Others said he was playing the victim. Some claimed racism was not real and that Patricia was just doing her job. Marcus did not read too many comments. He had learned that the internet was full of people who would never understand. People who had never been judged just for existing in a space where others thought they did not belong. But there were also supportive comments. Messages from other people of color who said they had experienced similar things. Thank you messages. Stories of discrimination. Stories of hope. One comment stood out. It was from a young black woman named Taylor.
I am a college student studying to be a pilot.
I almost quit last month because I am tired of being the only black woman in every room. But seeing you handle this situation with such dignity gave me strength. Thank you for not staying silent. Marcus read that comment 3 times. Then he screenshotted and saved it to his phone. This was why it mattered. Not for him. He would be fine no matter what. He had money and power and resources. But for people like Taylor, people who were still fighting for their place in the world, people who needed to see that it was possible to stand up to discrimination and win, Marcus opened a new email and typed, "Taylor, thank you for your comment. If you are serious about becoming a pilot, I want to help. Please contact my assistant. We have a scholarship program starting soon, and I think you would be a perfect candidate." He sent the email and closed his laptop. Tomorrow he would continue working on the airline reforms. He would meet with training experts. He would review new policies. He would do the hard work of actually creating change. But tonight he allowed himself to feel satisfied. He had turned something painful into something productive. He had used his privilege and his platform to help others. And he had proven that sometimes the best revenge was not destroying your enemies. It was building something better than they ever could. Marcus changed into his comfortable clothes. The same hoodie and joggers from the flight. He looked at himself in the mirror. Same clothes, same person. But now everyone knew his name. Now everyone knew his story. He wondered if Patricia Morrison was watching the news. If she understood yet what she had really done that day. She had not just humiliated one passenger. She had sparked a movement. A conversation. A change that would affect thousands of employees and millions of passengers, all because she made assumptions about a man in a hoodie. Marcus turned off the lights and went to bed. He had a busy day tomorrow. Always another meeting. Another deal. Another chance to make a difference. But tonight, for the first time since boarding that flight, he slept peacefully. 3 months later, Marcus stood at a podium in front of 200 aviation industry professionals. The conference hall was packed. Airline executives, flight attendants, pilots, journalists. They had all come to hear him speak about the changes happening at the airline. Behind him, a screen displayed the title of his presentation, From Incident to Impact, Transforming Airline Culture. Marcus looked out at the audience. He saw faces of every color, young people and old people, men and women. This was the aviation industry. Diverse in some ways, still struggling in others. 3 months ago, Marcus began, I boarded a flight wearing comfortable clothes. A hoodie, joggers, sneakers. I had a valid first-class ticket, but a flight attendant decided I did not belong. She questioned my ticket. She questioned how I could afford it. She suggested I might have stolen it. She humiliated me in front of dozens of passengers. The room was completely silent. That incident was filmed by multiple passengers. It went viral. 50 million views and counting. The flight attendant was fired. And I was angry. I was hurt. I was tired of being treated like I did not belong simply because of how I looked. Marcus clicked to the next slide. It showed Patricia's face, blurred for privacy, being escorted by security. But I made a choice. Instead of just suing the airline or destroying their reputation, I decided to use my position as a major shareholder to create real change. Today I want to share what we have accomplished in just 3 months, and what still needs to be done. He clicked through slides showing statistics and programs. First, we implemented mandatory bias training for all employees, not the usual online module. Real training, 8 hours in person, led by experts in psychology, diversity, and inclusion. So far, we have trained 4,000 employees. By the end of the year, every single person who works for this airline will have completed the training. Heads nodded around the room. Second, we created a new complaint system, easy to use, transparent, accountable. In the past 3 months, we have received 112 complaints through the new system. That is more complaints than we used to get in 6 months, not because discrimination increased, but because passengers finally have an easy way to report it, and because they trust that something will actually happen. Marcus paused and took a sip of water. Of those 112 complaints, 48 have been resolved. 22 employees received additional training. 10 were suspended. 4 were terminated. The remaining cases are still under investigation. We publish these numbers every month. Complete transparency. A hand went up in the audience. A middle-aged white man in a pilot's uniform. Mr. Chen, some employees are complaining that the new policies are too harsh, that people are losing jobs over misunderstandings. What do you say to that? Marcus looked at him steadily. I say that if you are treating passengers fairly and respectfully, you have nothing to worry about. The employees who were terminated were not fired over misunderstandings. They were fired because they discriminated against passengers based on race, religion, or disability. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a choice. The pilot sat down, looking uncomfortable. Third, Marcus continued, we launched the Aviation Excellence Scholarship Program, funded by Chen Global Investments, $10 million over 5 years. In the past 3 months, we have awarded 50 scholarships to students of color who want to work in aviation. Pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, engineers, airport management. The response has been overwhelming. We received over 2,000 applications. The screen behind him showed photos of some scholarship recipients. Young faces full of hope and determination. One of those students is Taylor Williams. Taylor is 20 years old and studying to be a commercial pilot. She was ready to quit because she felt like she did not belong. But after seeing what happened to me, and seeing that I used that experience to create change, she found the courage to keep going. Taylor is here today. Taylor, would you stand up? In the third row, a young black woman with her hair in neat braids stood up. The audience applauded. Taylor's eyes were shiny with tears. Taylor represents the future of this industry, Marcus said. She represents what is possible when we invest in talent instead of making assumptions based on appearance. Taylor sat down, wiping her eyes. Marcus clicked to a new slide. This one showed a graph tracking discrimination complaints over time. Now I want to be honest. The numbers went up before they went down. In month 1, complaints increased by 40%. Some people said that proved the training was not working, but I knew better. The increase meant people finally felt safe reporting discrimination. They finally believed something would happen. By month 2, complaints started to level off, and in month 3 we saw our first decrease, down 15% from month 1. That suggests the training is working. Employees are thinking more carefully about their actions. They are challenging their own biases. Another hand went up, a young woman this time. Mr. Chen, what about the flight attendant who started all this? Patricia Morrison. What happened to her? Marcus had been expecting this question. Patricia Morrison was terminated as she should have been. Her behavior was unacceptable. But I also want to acknowledge something important. Patricia did not wake up that day planning to discriminate. She made a split-second judgment based on unconscious bias, a bias that had been reinforced over 12 years of working in an environment that never challenged it. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Patricia sent me a letter last month. A real letter, handwritten, not an email. In it, she apologized again. But more importantly, she explained what she had learned. She talked about going to therapy, about confronting her own racism, about realizing how many times she had made similar judgments without even noticing. She asked if there was any way she could help with the training program, to share her story, to help other people avoid making the same mistakes. And what did you say? The woman asked. I said yes. Murmurs went through the audience. Patricia will never work as a flight attendant again, but she is working with our training team to develop case studies, using her own experience, her own mistakes, to teach others. She is not getting paid. She is doing it because she genuinely wants to make amends. Marcus clicked to the next slide. It showed excerpts from Patricia's letter. She wrote, I destroyed my career and hurt an innocent man because I made assumptions based on the color of his skin. I cannot undo that harm, but I can make sure other people learn from my mistake. That is the only way I can begin to forgive myself. The room was very quiet now. I share this not because I have forgiven Patricia, Marcus said. Forgiveness is complicated, personal, but I share it because real change requires everyone to be honest about their biases, even people who made terrible mistakes, especially those people. Marcus clicked through more slides showing surveys and feedback from passengers. Customer satisfaction among passengers of color has increased by 28%. Complaints about discriminatory treatment are down. And we are seeing more diverse passengers choosing this airline specifically because of our commitment to change. A man in the back raised his hand. Mr. Chen, you are now on the board of directors and the operations committee. What is your long-term vision for this airline? Marcus smiled. My vision is simple. I want an airline where everyone feels welcome, where a passenger can board a plane in a hoodie or a hijab or a wheelchair and know they will be treated with respect, where employees feel empowered to call out discrimination when they see it, where diversity is not just a marketing buzzword, but a lived reality. And I want this airline to be a model for the entire industry. We are not there yet. We still have work to do, but we are moving in the right direction. He clicked to his final slide. It showed a quote, "Change happens when we turn pain into purpose." 3 months ago, I was humiliated on a plane. Today, I am standing here talking about systemic change across an entire industry. That is the power of using your voice, the power of using your platform, the power of refusing to stay silent. Marcus looked out at the audience. I am fortunate to have money and influence. Most people who experience discrimination do not have those resources. They suffer in silence. They accept unfair treatment because they do not think they can fight back. But they can. We all can. By speaking up, by reporting incidents, by demanding better. He closed his laptop. That is the end of my presentation. But it is not the end of this journey. We have only just begun. Thank you. The audience stood up and applauded. Not polite golf claps, but real applause. Long and loud. Some people had tears in their eyes. After the conference, Marcus met with Taylor and several other scholarship recipients. They had lunch together at a nearby restaurant. These young people asked him questions about business, about discrimination, about how to handle situations where they felt unwelcome. The most important thing, Marcus told them, is to never internalize other people's biases. When someone treats you badly, that is about them, not you. You belong everywhere your talents and hard work can take you. Never forget that, Taylor nodded. That is easier said than done. I know, Marcus agreed. I still struggle with it. Even now, even with all my success, I still sometimes feel like I have to prove I belong. But I am working on it, and I hope that by the time you are my age, the world will be different enough that you will not have to work as hard at it as I did. That evening, Marcus flew back to New York. On the same airline, same route, different plane. He bought a first-class ticket and wore jeans and a nice shirt. When he boarded, the flight attendant greeted him warmly. Good evening, Mr. Chen. Welcome aboard. Your seat is 2A, right this way. No questions about his ticket. No suspicious looks. Just normal, respectful service. Marcus smiled and thanked her. This was how it should always be. During the flight, he pulled out his tablet and read through emails. One was from Sarah Williams, the regional director. Marcus, I wanted you to know that applications to work for our airline have increased by 40% since we announced the reforms. And the applicant pool is now 55% people of color, up from 32% last year. Your work is making a real difference. Another email was from Richard Harrison, the CEO. Board meeting next month. Would like to discuss expanding the scholarship program and implementing similar reforms across our partner airlines. Your leadership on this issue has been transformative. And one more email. This one from someone Marcus did not know. The subject line said, "Thank you from a mother." Marcus opened it. Dear Mr. Chen, my son is 8 years old. He is black. Last week he saw the video of what happened to you. He asked me why that lady was mean to you. I tried to explain about discrimination, but it is hard to explain to a child. Then we watched your speech together. We watched you talk about turning pain into purpose. My son looked at me and said, I want to do that too. When people are mean, I want to make things better. You gave my son hope. You showed him that he does not have to accept unfair treatment, that he can stand up and create change. Thank you for that gift. Sincerely, Monica Jackson. Marcus read that email 3 times. Then he saved it in a special folder on his computer labeled Why It Matters. The plane landed in New York late at night. Marcus took a taxi to his apartment in Manhattan. It was a penthouse with views of the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, art on the walls. But tonight none of that felt as important as that email from Monica Jackson, or the scholarship students he had met, or the changes happening across the airline industry. Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the glittering lights of New York. Millions of people out there, all with their own stories, their own struggles, their own moments of discrimination or triumph. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from Mrs. Kim, the British woman from the flight. "Hello, dear. Just wanted to let you know that my daughter Rachel is filing a class action lawsuit on behalf of passengers who were discriminated against by airlines in the past 5 years. Your case inspired her. She hopes to create even more systemic change. Would you be willing to be a witness?" Marcus smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. Let me know when and where." He put down his phone and looked at his reflection in the window. Same face, same person, but somehow different now. Stronger. More purposeful. 3 months ago, he had been humiliated on a plane. He could have stayed angry, could have stayed hurt, could have sued for millions and moved on with his life. Instead, he had chosen to create something bigger than himself. To turn his pain into purpose. To use his privilege to lift up others. And in doing so, he had discovered something important. Real power was not about wealth or status. Real power was about using your voice to change systems, to challenge injustice, to make the world a little bit better for the people who came after you. Marcus opened his laptop one more time. He started writing a new proposal for the board. Expanding the reforms, creating industry-wide standards, building partnerships with other airlines. The work was never finished. There would always be more to do, more bias to challenge, more people to help, more change to create. But for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt hopeful. Not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been told they did not belong. They belonged. They all belonged, and Marcus would spend the rest of his life making sure the world knew it. He typed late into the night, the city lights twinkling outside his window, a small smile on his face. The man in the hoodie who was told he did not belong was now helping to rebuild the entire industry. And that, Marcus thought, was the sweetest victory of all.